You know, every other day I'm seeing a new article predicting Nintendo's fall. Every other day I'm seeing comments by the truckload predicting Nintendo's death or switch to third party like Sega did. Where is all this coming from? Why are respected game journalists predicting Nintendo's doom because the Wii U is underperforming in its first 6 months? Who actually was convinced that the Wii U would reach the same amount of hype and sales that the Wii did? Who was actually convinced that the Wii U would be flying off the shelves like the Wii did back in 2006? I wasn't. The Wii was lightning in a bottle. It was luck. It was incredibly lucky that the Wii went off like it did. One wrong move, and it could have just been this gimmicky thing that just no one bought. Except to play Smash Bros. And Mario Kart. But why is it that poor out of the gates sales is enough to destroy an entire company? Well, with that, I would like to show you Michael Pachter's comments back in 2006 predicting the death of Sony because of the poor sales of the PS3. I'd like to, but I can't, because he never made any statements like that. And yet, every other week he seems convinced Nintendo is going to go under because the Wii U is underperforming. Despite the fact Nintendo is a multi-billion-dollar company with billions of dollars left in the bank and billions of dollars worth of assets. Nintendo, if they did go third party, would absorb everything in their path, from Capcom to Square Enix, but most likely the first thing they would absorb would be EA, as a means of comic revenge, if you will. But the PS3 and 3DS both had pretty weak sales out the gate. And now the 3DS has some of the best titles out there, like Luigi's Mansion 2 and Fire Emblem Awakening, which actually got a higher score on IGN than Bioshock Infinite. And yes, I'm still reviewing that next week. But yeah, the 3DS now is one of the best-selling consoles, is one of the best-selling handhelds out there right now. In fact, the sales of the 3DS have gone up to the lifetime sales of the GameCube, Nintendo's weakest console. Why are people convinced that Nintendo is going to go completely out of business, or they're pretty much referencing Sega's downfall? Look, when Sega released the Dreamcast, they were already out. They were already on the way out. Sega was in dire financial straits at that time. Nintendo isn't. The amount of money they have locked away in the bank and the amount of money they still rack in is more than enough to keep them afloat for years to come. But here's something else you need to think about. If the Wii U failure means death to Nintendo, what does that mean about the 3DS's success? Does it balance it out or anything? Look, the Wii U isn't a failure, much like the PS3 wasn't a failure, much like the 3DS wasn't a failure. Yes, they both didn't launch properly with lackluster third-party and exclusive titles. But since then, they've both gotten some great titles, and now they've reached pretty good selling points. The PS3 sold, 60, 70 million worldwide? 3DS, 22 million. Look, the Wii U has sold about 3 million so far. Now, when Nintendo finally brings out their first-party titles like Pikmin 3, Mario Kart, Wind Waker HD, a new Mario 3D title, the new Smash Brothers, Bayonetta 2, because that's pretty much a first-party game. Yeah. The new Yoshi game, the new Xenoblade game, the new Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem game. What else was there? That's only the stuff we already know about. When E3 rolls around, Sony and Microsoft will be spending most of their time pitching their new systems, and Microsoft is going to try and convince you that an always-on system with no 360 backward support is going to be good, and the PS4 is going to show you games that aren't going to move the systems. It's funny when you think about it. Wind Waker HD, a remake of a 10-year-old GameCube game, is going to move more systems than any of the stuff I saw at the PS4 event back in January. I'm serious. Killzone, Infamous, they don't move fucking systems. Alright? Wind Waker HD, Smash Brothers, Wii Fit U is gonna move systems. The Wii U isn't a failure because of 6 months of slow, sluggish sales. Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate came out a few weeks ago and sales skyrocketed in Japan after it losing to the Vita a few weeks earlier than that. The Wii U isn't going to reach the same sales as the Wii. That's a given. But the fact that Nintendo's going to completely go under because of the Wii U not succeeding in the first 6 months is laughable. This is the company who decided to make the Virtual Boy with one color and headaches aplenty. This is the company that decided to stick with archaic cartridges for the N64. This is the company who decided to put SD, no HD graphics, and motion controls into a console. Now, the Virtual Boy was an absolute failure. The Wii U isn't. Alright? If Nintendo can survive the Virtual Boy, it can survive anything. And even if third parties don't want to deal with them, with the introduction of Kickstarter and Nintendo's new web framework and Unity support and all that other stuff, a part of me wants to see at E3 Nintendo's main keynote and then a secondary keynote for their indie supports. I would love to see Nintendo call up independent developers like that Cryomore game and show it off during another keynote. Because if Nintendo wants to show off how much they're loving the indie support lately, giving them center stage at E3 would be a perfect decision. The simple fact is, it seems to me that when it comes to games journalism, it's all about the pro Microsoft and Sony coverage. And yet, Nintendo's successes, I go with, just luck. And if Nintendo fails, they all are crying and screaming for Nintendo's death. It seems to me that Nintendo might have pissed off games journalism a few years ago because it just seems to me that there is an anti-Nintendo bias swirling around the sites like Kotaku and Destructoid and Joystick and that kind of stuff. It's just so frustrating hearing all this noise about Nintendo's doom when people who actually have a fucking clue know that Nintendo is nowhere near death. The Wii was such a resounding success, they could do anything with the money they made for it, like, I don't know, buy the publishing rights for Bayonetta 2, or buy Mega Man, or buy Peter Moore and then kick him in the ass, or shove a mustard up his ass. I'd like that. Look, third-party developers, why are you so reluctant to develop for the Wii U? It's not a case of if the Wii U sells, it's a question of when. And here's something you need to consider. After people are done playing with their Mario Kart and Wind Waker HD, what are they going to play afterwards? Sure, you can use your PS4 with all the specs that you do not need and all that stuff on the controller that you won't use, or the Xbox 720, which has the most pathetic DRM ever. If Microsoft is seriously bringing on always-on internet for the Xbox 720 and not giving us Xbox 360 backwards compatibility, it seems to me that Nintendo may be tripping up, but Sony and Microsoft, thinking they might be able to get ahead of them, are falling everywhere else.